Presidential, a Dvar Torah for Parashat Shlach. Trying to keep up with the Israeli politics, not a simple feat during the current seemingly endless cycle of elections, I thought it might be time to discuss presidency. Not the new president whose identity you should know by now, but I didn't when I was recording this, but rather the decision to send as spies a bunch of presidents, or heads, or commanders, or whatever kol nasi bahem is supposed to mean. Let's start with the problem. In most of the 62 appearances of the word nasi in Sefer Bamidbar, it refers to a specific role description of a specific group of a very specific people, namely, the leaders of the Israeli tribes mentioned by name at the beginning of the book. It is true that there is one explicit exception, the 250 Nesi'im who joined Korach's rebellion, but otherwise this statement would range somewhere between a certainty and a safe bet. That's why, when the spies are called Nesi'im, this surprises Rabbi Yehuda ben Eliezer in his book Minchat Yehuda enough for him to actually raise the possibility, although he immediately discards it, that the Nesi'im we have just been introduced to by name in 4 different chapters have all died an untimely death even before Chet HaMeraglim. This very issue led Rabbi Chizkiah ben Manoach to say that we haven't read the verse correctly. Most of us assume that kol nasi bahem refers to those being sent, the spies. But according to him, this phrase refers to those who are doing the sending. In other words, the spies should be chosen by the heads of the tribes to make sure they represent their best interests. But the vast majority of commentators hold that we're trying to describe the spies themselves, like those who claim that Nesiut is a broader term. Instead of being the title of a specific job, a leader of a tribe, these commentators think it describes other leadership roles as well, although there isn't necessarily an agreement about which roles. Ibn Ezra leaves us with the most place for interpretation, which is very nice of him, but doesn't help us when we're looking for an exact definition. According to Ibn Ezra, kol nasi bahem means each one is a nasi among them, but since we're trying to understand the term nasi, this isn't very useful, and we'll have to continue our search elsewhere. Rabbi Yaakov Baal HaTurim, in his short commentary, tells us that these Nesi'im were chosen from among the Sarei Chamishim, some of the helpers Yitro advised Moshe to assign to himself as judges or peacekeepers. And although the way he reaches this conclusion isn't very scientific, it is cool if you like Gematria. The verse says that the spies were Rashei Bnei Yisrael Hema, and the numerical value of Hema is 50, which in the world of Gematria is excellent proof. Rabbi Moshe Yitzchak Ashkenazi in his book Koil Moshe suggests that we're talking about the heads of the major families within the tribes, one step under the heads of the tribes themselves. And since they're chosen as tribal representatives, it would seem to make sense that the role they play on a daily basis is a tribal role of great importance. And Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch broadens the criteria even more and says they didn't have to hold any official position to be considered Nesi'im. Rather, they had to be held in high regard by the rest of the tribe due to the virtue of their souls and their talent. What these commentaries have in common is that Nesiut, although not the role of the head of the tribe, is still a role, even if according to Rashar Hirsch, an unofficial one. That's where Rashbam differs from the commentators we've mentioned until now. Well, if you want to be technical, they differ from him, since he precedes them. According to Rashbam, Nesiut is a characteristic. Moshe was told to choose 12 people, one from each tribe, from among those who have volunteered to go. Shenasa otam libam lalechet. Thus, Rashbam has redefined the word nasi to mean volunteer. And Rashbam is backed up by Rabbi Yosef Kara, who explained that volunteers, in general, must raise above the average Joe, lehinaseh. But the last 2 commentators of this week focus on the reason for them being Nesi'im, and are interesting because of the way that they say the exact opposite. Ramban says that Hashem wanted all the spies to be Nesi'im for equality purposes. If they're all great, maybe they'll remember and return to Hashem, and if not, punishment can be equally distributed among the entire nation. But, says Ramban, when seeing the order in which they're mentioned, which is unlike any other order we've seen in the Torah, where the tribes are represented, Ramban concludes that this ideal situation of equality failed when put to test in the real world, and they were mentioned here according to the importance of the individual. Rabbi Ovadia Sforno, on the other hand, claims that the criteria for choosing the spies was to check who was most suited for the job. This should have, and usually would have, resulted in natural inequalities, because the world simply doesn't work that way. Well, maybe it doesn't work that way when we're talking about the natural world, but this was a special case. According to Sforno, the strange order in which the spies are mentioned is because there was no difference among the chosen individuals except for their age, and so they're mentioned according to age order. So if the newly elected president were to ask for my advice regarding their presidential role, as should obviously be the case, I would suggest the following. Stay alive, choose your own messengers, know your gematria, maintain healthy familial connections, be virtuous and talented, volunteer, strive for equality but know it's impossible, while assuming there will be no equality and then it will come, and most importantly, subscribe to my channel. And so can you, right after you click the like button and share this video with a friend. I'm Dovi Holtz, one who loves Tanakh.